success from him. And he's just going to continue to build on that. He had that 2024 Stuttgart Regional Championship, and he was playing in North America for a few years, went back over to Europe, and sure enough, he took the trip here, and he's having a pretty good time.
Not bad at all. You know, the nice cash money, securing up a spot, some stipends on the line, but I'm sure he wants that second regional championship. There's only an elite player, a group of players who've won a regional championship, but once you win that second one, you just become part of an even more stacked group. Henry Chow already a 2, make it 3-time regional champion, looking to close out the season with what he promised. Let the record show. Ooh. He promised a 4th regional championship when he was at that Atlanta Regionals and won, so we'll see if it happens.
He's literally out of chances. This is the one, unless he wants to
Not like there's a lot. He would win half the regionals this year, Kyle. It's like he's had a good amount of chances anyways.
Well, he's doing a phenomenal job so far. I mean, I remember his interview day 2 at NAIC, and he was talking about his reintroduction into the game, and who would have thought from that point forward he's just catapulted himself as to one of the best players in the game.
Players joking a little bit. You like to see that loose energy. It means that they're relaxed and that we are going to have a great game back and forth. Now, this is a matchup, you know, the start of the format, a lot of players just considered heavily in Gardevoird's favor, but it seems that as the format has progressed, as players have gotten more comfortable with decks, I would go as far as say, you know, at least from my Gardevoird perspective and from my time playing this deck, I think this matchup is close to 50-50, and that's crazy, given the consideration that you've got Lily's Clefairy and so many other pieces that do so great against Raging Bolt.
Yeah, excuse me, the back and forth that we've seen between these two decks, it's been pretty wild. It's been nice to see that inclusion of the Rapska. It's been able to help out a lot.
Yeah, Rapska, you know, is a card that can help protect the bench a little bit. That's something that Henry Chow is playing. He's changed up the list that we've seen, you know, the Brixty, the Brentimon 60, as we like to see sometimes. It's no longer, you know, the main staple. All of the Gardevoird list that made cut here at this event, Kyle, all going back to playing Technical Machine Evolution. It's a pretty big change. It really goes to show players are always innovating their 60 cards.
Right, and we've seen that innovation. It's been so helpful against other decks like Badoo that you see, but just having that opportunity to protect your bench early and often and find some consistency in building that evolution line on the bench in that Gardevoird, it's going to be a world of difference.
Players are getting ready, setting their prize cards out. We'll see what pieces are available for each of them. We saw a little bit of some interesting inclusions when it comes to these players and their prizes, but I think we are ready to get things underway. Top 4 star-studded match. Henry Chow kicks things off going first, and what an excellent starter there. That is the last thing you want to see when your opponent flips over the best starting Pokemon in the format in that Ditto.
It could be anything. It could even be a Ditto.
What am I playing against? Am I playing against myself? Is that a Monkey Dory I see?
I mean, the intimidation of Splup alone is going to be pretty terrible there. But yeah, what a solid start there for Henry. We see this so often. It is so important to see these energy cards and throw them into the discard pile. If you do not have that energy acceleration of Psychic Embrace, how do you compete?
Yeah, and these prizes are not super great for Henry. That Pheasantipity, always a key piece in drawing cards now that Refinement Curlia is gone. Drifloon is also another great attacker against this matchup, and that one rare candy stuck in the prize cards as well means Henry may have to rely off of that Technical Machine Evolution a little bit more than he would maybe like to in order to make sure that baby Raging Bolt does not take care of these Ralts in quick, swift succession.
Yeah, and maybe you miss out on a little bit of an opportunity there without the rare candy because you're going first in this matchup. Going second means you have that opportunity to immediately evolve into those Curlia if you have that Arven combo with the TM evolution. Instead, might be a little bit slower this time around. Buy Christian that time to take an early prize card or two.
So Earthen Vessel to start things off and does have Artisan. You know, it's going to help Christian out a little bit as well, right? Guarantees Fan Rotom or another one of those basic Pokemon, but it's at the cost of making sure that he can at least get a Ralts down this turn. It's always scary against an aggressive deck like Raging Bolt to only put one Ralts in play, but it's better than none, that's for sure.
Well, so often this is the Gardevoird way. Focus on your own strategy. If you play the best game you can, then you'll have a pretty solid chance at success. We know that on Christian's side, though, he can pop off pretty quickly.
Look at this hand. Already has 2 Hoot Hoot, Nest Ball, supporter cards, and let's not forget, Ditto could become anything, Kyle. anything. It will be up to him to decide how he wants to go about sequencing this turn, and even has the guaranteed search off Artisan. There is Pokemon galore here, the complete opposite of our first match we casted on the day, that's for sure.
Yeah, this deck looks pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so. It would be a shame if you could use the Jewel Seeker ability. We saw how impactful that was in the top 8 match. It's definitely going to need to be used a couple times at least here.
Well, if you could use that on the first turn, maybe we'd see that Prime Catcher for a knockout here on a Ralts. Instead, Christian might need to find a little bit of a different strategy. We could see Ditto transform into a more classic standard approach of a Raging Bolt EX and just take a knockout here on a Monkey Dory. You have plenty of opportunities to get aggressive here.
Yeah, this is really the difference between Raging Bolt now versus Raging Bolt, in the F regulation. Raging Bolt going second was one of the scariest decks in the format when Pokestop was in play. They would just dig through their entire deck, use Sada's Vitality, and attack. In this circumstance, you actually see most Raging Bolt decks opt to go first, just because it's pretty unrealistic for yourself to use, either that Bellowing Thunder or that Thunder Next Snap on the baby Raging Bolt to put damage and pressure on your opponent.
Yeah,
so
I'm
we'll see
seeing
what
the Pokemon catcher heads in my in my nightmares.
That was I was able to sleep better at night when I wasn't having to think about Pokemon catchers, that's for sure. So we'll see what Kristen decides to do. He's going to note that Professor Sada, as well as a couple of these important basic Pokemon, are unavailable. Is actually going to go ahead and grab the Fan Rotom here. An interesting choice, all things considered, since if he wanted to, he could kind of have played a little bit differently, right? Grab something like Latias instead, and then use the Artisan, but I'm sure there's a method for how Christian is doing everything.
Yeah, might be considering filling this bench without the Latias, and I mean, just the aggression alone of the Fan Rotom in the active. You're going to be dealing a pretty reasonable amount of damage. There's a boss's orders in the hand,
Is there a boss?
So this is pretty great. He can just take a knockout here, turn 1.
I promise that's not for our crowd. They're not excited about the boss's orders. It looks like we're figuring everything out in this spot here. We've got an Artisan. That would have been the most hype boss's orders of all time.
Whoa!
We're going to look through the deck, but this is, Prime Catcher. Yeah, Prime Catcher is good on turn 1. How about boss's orders when that's probably the only supporter you can play outside of Crispin that has any effect? And just like that, Crispin's not only going to take the first prize card, but he's essentially going to guarantee the first 2 prize cards of this matchup and force Henry to be on the back foot for the entirety of the early game.
Yeah, finding the knockout here without having to use your supporter like a Sada, like a Crispin, to get those extra energies in play is just so beneficial. It means that you have opportunities down the line to search out that A-spec, combo it with one of those greater supporters, and take the bigger knockouts later.
Turn 1 Assault Landing, KO onto Ralts. Henry Chow not only will be on the back foot, but he'll be staring down an almost perfect setup here for Christian. Can even play Nest Ball to grab more Pokemon. Now we'll grab that Latias. So Latias does eventually hit the board. Ralts goes down. Christian strikes first, and now how will you respond as Henry in this spot? Poffin's a good way to start things out. You did just lose that Ralts, and you're not going to be able to get Gardevoird EX into play this turn at least.
The one big piece from Henry's prize cards is going to be that Pheasantipity. Without access to that, without drawing 3 cards to punish your opponent for being aggressive, how do you continue to build on this hand and start to see anything that reflects a classic Gardevoird hand here?
Yeah, this deck, is at its most inconsistent when it just cannot draw cards, and I actually don't know if Henry has a lot else going on. Henry's a very expressive player. I want to note that. You can always kind of tell what's going on with him, whether he's getting good draws or bad, or his opponent's running hot. He can show it on his face, and you can see a little bit of frustration there, a little bit of, really, you have one of your 2 gusting cards and the Fan Rotom, and we actually are going to potentially see Monkey Dory swing in here. I think we've seen more Mind Bends announced in this top cut than we have seen Miracle Forces, and that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, this is not where you want to be, especially playing into confusion with Latias just sitting there in the wings, not taking a knockout on the Fan Rotom. It's just not great. I think there's a little bit of play here, but some timidness with playing out too many cards. Counter Catcher can bring up a Hoot Hoot.
Yeah, at worst, look at that. I think went into maybe was that a research for 1 off the restart? It might have been. Regardless, though, Henry's going to get a fresh hand of 7, and look at this, an actual really good find. Didn't have to look for it off Arvin, just finds the technical machine evolution, and this is a little bit better than using something like Mind Bend, getting double Curlia into play, and even has the Gardevoird EX in hand for the following turn.
Yeah, that worked out a little too well. It was scary to lose Gardevoird and Curlia, and fortunate to not draw into any Curlia in this spot, as you'd like to see both of those off this technical machine now.
Yeah, I just noticed a really interesting inclusion. Henry's actually only playing 2 Curlia in this deck. I expect to see 3 most times that we see the technical machine evolution package. That was what Piper was running, but not the same 60 here. And since Henry discarded that Curlia off research, is only going to get 1 into play and open the door back up for Christian to go aggressive after this Curlia, burning these Gust cards early. If it means you just get 3 free prizes before your opponent, that could be okay if that opens that option up for you. This is going to be really interesting to see what he wants to put together this turn.
Yeah, what was that other prize card that Henry had? Yeah. Uh-oh, rare candy. So how do you set up anything at this point if this Curlia were to fall? Noctowl has something for him. It's that Jewel Seeker ability, and you have to expect some knockout here on Curlia.
Yeah, it's an interesting spot since, Christian has no way to know if rare candy is available or not. I think the assumption at this point is that even with technical machine evolution, there's at least 1 in the deck. So with that being the case, right, in the best case scenario, you knock the Curlia out, it's good for you. But if you commit to burning both of your Gusting cards and your opponent just goes rare candy Gardevoird, how would you find yourself in that spot? I feel like you've got to then be on the back foot just because of 1 aggressive play. And we see Christian deciding to just establish the board, it looks like a little bit better, and take out the second best Pokemon in play, that Monkey Dory with the Dark Energy. Yeah,
that doesn't bother me at all here. If you're able to take a knockout on the only place where the energies are, you understand that you don't need to take a risk here. You could be in a pretty comfortable spot. Might be a position where he keeps playing through, though. We see the Pheasantipity now. He's got a nice setup.
I think it's just considering where to get rid of these energies from the Bellowing Thunder, like leaving 1 in the active, right? You don't force yourself into Sada for the turn. We'll be off that Fan Rotom. I think it's done its job, Kyle. It's taken out the Ralts and is now ready to sit on the bench and support its friends in battle. Now Henry's got to make a decision here. What do you want to promote? What Pokemon do you want to Psychic Embrace onto? If there's anybody who knows the exact optimal lines to make, in Henry we trust. I think Chow's got it.
Yeah, so often there's a back and forth of how much damage do you want to place on your own board. Sometimes doing inoptimal retreating so that you have a potential to move that damage around with Monkey Dory. Being that the Monkey Dory was just knocked out, probably makes sense to just go with a simple retreater.
And again, we're going to see the downside of not having access to Pheasantipity limit what Henry is potentially able to put together this turn. He's really only going to be able to draw these 6 cards and see what he can find. Looks like does have Ultra Ball. Kyle, is this the time for Lily's Clefairy to come down and get in for some action?
Yeah, we could certainly see that. Look at the amount of Pokemon on Christian's side of the board. You start to flip over, give this Pokemon some weakness, and the Rondo starts to line up these prize cards pretty nicely.
The big downside, though, is, if you do use a Pokemon like Gardevoird EX to take a knockout, then Christian can just save that last Gusting card, that Prime Catcher, to take the final 2. Put together enough energy for 1 more Bellowing Thunder, and then from there, it seems Christian could have an easy way to pair this. So I wonder if there's something even like a Scream Tail to take the knockout. We know that Drifloon is prized. It's not an option, unfortunately. So with the Scream Tail, it's usually not there to attack the active Pokemon with the weakness, and I guess with 3 Psychic Embrace abilities, it would be exactly 240, so that it is an option if it comes down to it.
Yeah, just now considerations as to which Pokemon is your optimal attacker here. You know that there's only 1 energy on board, no other ancient Pokemon if you knock out the active.
That was a huge restart, Kyle. Really wanted to find that Scream Tail, I feel, and found the Artisan to get that down. There's a bench space open. And so now I wonder here, Henry's going to check through, see how many energy. So 3 Psychic in the discard pile and 1 onto this Ralts. And it looks like immediately going for Scream Tail. We're going to see the rare active Scream Tail snipe. Henry can even things up. and immediately Christian's going to be put into a spot where he wants to go 2-2 from here, but being down that boss's orders for that early aggression could make that difficult if there's the Scream Tail in the active spot to attack.
This is one of those weaknesses that we see from Christian's side, is that he doesn't have great answers to damaged Pokemon. You're attacking in, you don't really have much of a spread opportunity here, and you don't want to take a single prize knockout in spots like this.
So there it is, Roaring Scream, 240 damage, thanks to the Fairy Zone ability on that Lily's Clefairy EX, and importantly does find Pheasantipity off of the prize card's Drifloon, still hiding out a little bit too high to grab, but it will be back on Christian now. Still has access to double Jewel Seeker if he chooses, the Teal Mask is in play, and we'll start things out. Flip the script, there's going to be lots of cards drawn, lots of cards found, and potentially a big turn here for Christian.
Right, and now you have still potential to go find that ace-spec and prime catcher. Take a 2-prize knockout in this instance. You're still ignoring a pretty big threat in that active Pokemon, but do you have an opportunity here to ignore a single prizer and just push aggression? It seems tough when you already used your boss's orders.
I don't think so. You know, we saw some lists last time, of course, our regional champion did play the Palpad in the deck. That's a way to bring boss's orders back, but there's no Palpad in the list here for Christian. It's just the one boss's orders and the one prime catcher, and then counter catcher is the other gusting card, but it seems that the way this game is going to most likely play out, Christian is not going to be able to use the counter catcher if he goes to 2 prizes, and then Henry just answers with a 2-prize response of his own.
Yeah, and then that leads to considerations for attacking with some inoptimal Pokemon, the Fan Rotom or anything just to take a simple single prize KO, but then you open up the avenues for counter catcher on the other side, losing some of these 2-prize Pokemon, and that's going to be a pretty large deficit.
So we're seeing here, Kyle, potentially some early aggression for Christian, seeming to put him in a good spot. Henry has fought back despite the bad prize cards, the slow start. This is what Henry does. He takes games that look so favored for the opponent and he just flips them over on itself and puts himself in a spot where I would go as far to say as Henry is in a pretty commanding spot in this game now, considering what resources Christian has available and what his board looks like.
Yeah, even worst case scenario, if Christian were to find the ace-spec prime catcher, take a giant knockout on the Gardevoird out of nowhere, he found Rare Candy and Pheasantipity off of his prizes. He has exactly what he'd need as a counter response here, so you have to feel like Henry is on top of the world right now.
So we'll see Christian play things through. He's taking his time. We'll see the Area 0, one of those grabs off the Noctowl's Jewel Seeker ability. There's 2 ancient Pokemon, and I'm sure Professor Sada will be following in kind. So Henry's going to be able to keep those cards in his hand as well. Christian just not having an opportunity to hand disrupt. That's sort of, you know, Raging Bolt's MO. You got to have to play Sada, Crispin, Boss, all those supporters. You do have that Judge as a little bit of a backup protection as well as the Iono. But there really doesn't seem like a great opportunity to use it in this spot.
Yeah, finding that spot would mean that you're going for that single prize knockout, and you're not accelerating very many energies onto the board. You just don't have an answer to any of these big 2-prize Pokemon that you want to knock out down the line.
So here we go. Professor Sada's Vitality, 2 Lightning Energy accelerated to these ancient Pokemon. 3 additional cards drawn for Christian from the top of the deck. What can he put together in this spot? As it stands, Teal Dance has not been used yet, so that could put him up to 4 energy, and a manual attachment to 5 means those are all she wrote. 5 energy cards could knock out the Gardevoird.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, right, you take the 2 prize cards, but there's nothing like Bravery Charm in Christian's list either, so if you do that with a Raging Bolt, the damage is already just on the board, right? Scream Tail just guaranteed is going to take 2 prizes, and then as long as another Ralts comes down, and even a Kirlia, then what do? Just hope your opponent can't establish a Gardevoird X? That doesn't really seem like a favorably winning strategy for you.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing a nod to that here with the Fighting Energy going to the Baby Raging Bolt instead, as even though it's a juicy target and 310 hit points falling would be great, it doesn't leave you with much of an answer.
So with that attachment on the Baby Raging Bolt, it begs the question, what is Christian's plan for this turn? Is he thinking about just maybe passing things over, attacking? It may just be an attack onto this active Pokemon.
Snipers?
Taking
Both
one
Pokemon?
prize. And now Henry in a prime spot to put himself back into a commanding lead. He's going to check the discard pile. I'm curious to see how many counter catcher are available, since a counter catcher to take out a 2-prizer could put him in a spot where he's just another Scream Tail away from closing this game out.
Yeah, I think we saw one earlier that was thrown away off Professor's research or with one of those early discards, but other than that, we see one at the very top of the deck here. So a couple options to search through and find that. We saw Iono in the hand, of course the Mew with the restart ability, so a few more ways to dig deeper. And then if you want to open up that bench spot, you have that Pheasantipity as well.
Yeah, we'll see what he chooses to put down as that 5th and final bench Pokemon. Pheasantipity sounds like a pretty sound option. You know, if your opponent's got a way to gust up a 2-prizer, there's 1, 2 relatively easy options to KO. Third is not really going to change much. Munkidori yet to have a Dark Energy. We're going to see the restart first. This could be a nod to that rare candy being in hand. Maybe Henry is looking to find something like that Night Stretcher to just put the second Gardevoird into play, shut these options off, does not find it. It's that 1-1 Relor Rabska line. Iono does have Dark Energy. That's not a bad piece at all, but I now have to wonder, you know, Plan A didn't go to tune. You didn't find that Gardevoird. Do you play the Iono, or are you just content letting it rip and just discarding the hand?
Giddy up.
Let's go. Saddle up here, Kyle. 7 fresh cards. Henry, I'm sure, has got to be looking for at least a way to power something up, or the counter catcher does find that counter catcher, and I have to imagine that's going to be music to his ears.
Yeah, this is so important. Not only do you have the counter catcher to take the 2-prize knockout, but you also found the perfect answer in that Dark Energy with the Munkidori. You can set up a knockout on basically any one of these Pokemon other than the Raging Bolt EX, and then if you place the rest of those energies onto the Lily's Clefairy, you have a backup plan if this Pokemon were to be knocked out.
Yeah, I wonder if Henry will just go out of his way to even attack with the Lily's Clefairy this turn, right? That Full Moon Rondo is doing 240 damage right now at this spot. 2 full benches plus 1 extra from the Terra. You can even go after something like that Teal Mask Ogerpon. Do you think that's the choice, or is Pheasantipity almost always the go-to sparkle when it comes to taking a 2-prize KO this turn?
Well, we've seen the disrespect already to what Christian is capable of. Did not want to mess with his hand with the Iono. So you might want to go after the board position here instead and just remove those 2 energies along with gaining those 2 prize cards.
You also take a Terra Pokemon out of play as well, so you'd force another one to come back into play. It does also have bench protection, so, you know, just in case your opponent has something like a Professor Turo and removes something like the Pheasantipity or Latias off the board, it is a little bit of a safer option. So we'll see what Henry decides to do. Again, he's been in these spots before. He's actually going to go after the Raging Bolt EX. Interesting play
Christian
here,
looked confused too.
Yeah, it looks like just considering taking a knockout onto this Pokemon. And this is actually, I think, smart the more I think about this. At first, you know, it is a little bit normal to doubt, but by taking out the Raging Bolt with the energy, it means that Raging Bolt EX is not going to be able to attack next turn unless Christian plays a Sada, which means Henry will be able to keep this large hand size plus another Flip the Script ability, forcing Christian to essentially make an ultimatum this next turn.
Yeah, this works out so well. Using that Lily's Clefairy to take a knockout here, set up those energies, protect your Gardevoird, and also make use of that Munkidori. You have all these great options to use to try to close out here. You take your 2 prize cards, and you're just eyeing up a couple more to get the job done.
Yeah, Adrenabrain can just put something onto either the Pheasantipity or Latias, and now you don't even need the Lily's Clefairy for next turn. Screamtail will get the job done with just 1 more Adrenabrain, and Henry Chow is clawed back in this game number 1, and is just 2 prize cards away from going up 1-0.
Yeah, now for Christian, he's got a couple things he needs to figure out here. Ignoring Lily's Clefairy doesn't sound great, but if you can come up with a plan that takes these prize cards, but also is able to incorporate a card like that Judge into this turn, then maybe you can slow down your opponent.
And this is so smart from Henry. Something small that he did that is such an important factor is that Bravery Charm on the Munkidori. Kyle, why is that so impactful in this spot?
I mean, just having the additional hit points protecting this Pokemon so that you can move damage counters feels great to me. It's one of those things that's just so helpful when your opponent's just trying to sneak away and take prizes like with this Raging Bolt.
Yeah, you know, Baby Raging Bolt, if it knocked out this Munkidori, Henry would kind of be bench trapped, right? You can't bench the Screamtail and another Pokemon down, which would make it a little bit harder to knock out this Pheasantipity. So a small but impactful play from Henry is just trying to seal every crack in the wall and make sure there are no leaks today. He's going to be trying to advance to this final match and get another regional championship under his belt.
It's looking pretty good so far. Christian, he's trying to find an alternative. He's got a little more bench to work with, of course, with that Area 0. And he has his Ace Peck in hand, but he's staring at a pretty formidable opponent on the other side. This Lily's Clefairy is pretty devastating to his deck, but he's played around it a little bit by not having one of those Raging Bolt EX in play.
Yeah, what is your attacker of choice here if you're Christian? You know, you go with the baby Raging Bolt, you KO something.
Ralts, yeah.
And then the Pheasantipity flips the script, the bench is now open. You just retreat, and then Screamtail gets the job done. You go with the 2-prizer. Well, there are multiple ways that ends bad with Gardevoird EX, a Lily's Clefairy. So what do you do here? And it may have to revolve some sort of hand disruption and some sort of disruption here with the jamming tower. This could be Christian's way to try and sneakily play around the Monkey Dory, having some extra HP, right? 4 energy Raging Bolt snipe. Then now this Screamtail doesn't become as much of an option. It would actually force another Bravery Charm out for Henry, plus a counter stadium to get rid of that jamming tower.
Yeah, this is real smart. If you can take that single prize KO here, you avoid also playing into the counter catcher here. It's all reliant on that Screamtail, and you don't really have the bench space to maneuver all of this in combination with Monkey Dory. It'd have to be the additional points from the Bravery Charm.
So it will be those 2 choices. Grabbing counter catcher. Surprisingly, that is online for Christian in this position. Behind on prizes, 3-2. Maybe trying to bring up something like Pheasantipity EX even just to force an energy out. I mean, Adrenaline Brain is not an option on the following turn.
Yeah, it's just an additional energy that has to also come from the hand too, as Psychic Embrace is only for those Psychic Pokemon. So make your opponent have to have every resource possible to get the job done.
So here we go, counter catcher on the Pheasantipity. It looks like we are seeing a Thunderburst Storm angle, drawing so many cards. Teal Dance, flip the script. We'll see Sada accelerate cards. There's manual attachments yet to happen. This is just Raging Bolt doing its thing.
It's unreal how many energies can fly onto the board at any point in time, and also move Pokemon around. I mean, a counter catcher here, getting the job done, setting this up, and now seeing that Raging Bolt do its job. It's pretty remarkable what he's able to do in a turn.
So there it is, Professor Sada accelerating the 3rd Energetic Raging Bolt. We see 3, Kyle, but how often do we see the 4 Energy Raging Bolt? 120 snipe. It's a pretty heavy cost for 4 energies. I don't know how many people would say that's competitively viable, but in this spot, it's exactly what Christian needs, paired with that jamming tower, to give himself the best shot in this game.
Yeah, some diminishing returns, but here it might actually pay off. You need to take that Monkey Dory out of the tree. It is an absolute pain, and it would work out fairly well here. It just really is all reliant on what Henry would have to follow up here.
Yeah, interesting choice. How many energies are in the discard pile? There's only 3 energy in the discard, and there are 2 essentially trapped onto that Lily's Clefairy. So with there being 1 in the prize cards as well for Henry, he's going to actually just be maxed at a total of 4 Psychic Embrace. So that's only 160 damage. And if there's no Monkey Dory, and if there's no ability to play counter catcher with Christian tying things up, Christian may have found his route back into this game.
Yeah, Pheasantipity hanging on by a thread, and I mean that's great planning from Christian to not have any lower hit point EX Pokemon in play, not have that Mew in there or any other Pokemon that would be a problem. He played around just about everything here.
There could be an option I'm thinking about. Oh, and even discarding Pheasantipity with the jamming tower, taking that option away entirely as well, and just leaving a bunch of high HP 2-prize Pokemon and the Blood Moon Ursaluna as the finisher in this spot. Christian Fontenot putting on a class on how a deck like Raging Bolt, which seems simple on its surface, has so much behind and can really put on pressure. And is actually going to KO the Ralts? We're going after Ralts instead?
I mean, at this point, you're not intimidated by the Monkey Dory. There's no damage amount that you're thinking will knock out a Blood Moon Ursaluna. You have both Pokemon protected with their Terra abilities with your Ogre Pawns, so it's just taking a calculated risk here that you will not find enough energies and a Bravery Charm for that Screamtail to take a knockout on Blood Moon.
So we'll see how things play out here for Henry. So 4th Psychic can hit the discard pile. And it may come down to a last-ditch effort Iono to put his opponent to just 2 cards to find that Prime Catcher. And while you said the board is protected well, there's a lot missing. There's no Hoot on the bench, no Mew EX, no Pheasantipity. It may just have to be an Iono and Prey angle potentially. Let's see how Henry wants to go about this.
Well, it's got a chance to have success here as we see 4 Grass Energy already played down, no access to Jewel Seeker. Any draws that are live here, they're pretty limited, especially with the Grass in hand too. That would go to the bottom of the deck. you'd need to find the exact right cards to close out here.
So Screamtail the choice from that Night Stretcher and Iono. Henry's just going to grab 2 cards, but more importantly for Christian, that Prime Catcher going to the bottom of the deck. He will also get 2 cards. See them UEX restart, has the Secret Box plus the Super Rod, flip the script as well. So Henry's pretty much saying, look, Christian, it's on you to win the game this turn. If not, I've got way too many resources at my disposal.
Yeah, even has that Bravery Charm. Is plenty of resources here. Is there potential to set up enough damage onto the Blood Moon Ursaluna to clean this Pokemon up next turn with the Monkey Dory? If so, you'd feel like that'd be a pretty comfortable position. Just not opening up any bench spaces here and saying, I've got checkmate on board.
Now the final question is, what do you attack? What do you knock out? Do you try and damage a Pokemon and put it into range? Or are you okay taking a knockout on this Raging Bolt? And that honestly might just be okay of taking a knockout on the Raging Bolt, because if your opponent can somehow get 5 energy on Raging Bolt, they could snipe the Lily's Clefairy unless you play out of range with Adrenaline Brain, which it looks like will be the case, and it looks like it's going to be this 2-turn strat of hitting this, hitting this Blood Moon Ursaluna twice to put it into range. What a game 1 this has been, Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild that it's come down to this. Of course, the Jamming Tower is still in place, so the Bravery Charms aren't doing much, but Christian is feeling the pressure. This hand has what? It's just energy here. Is there a way to shuffle? We don't see it.
Energies can always be dreams, Kyle. Don't count them out. When they're with Teal Mask Ogerpon, they are a powerful drawing asset.
One dream.
We've got one dream to find a way to shuffle, and then another dream to get that dream. Here we go. First Teal Dance. Let's see the 1 card. Is it a way to shuffle the deck? No, it's a Lightning Energy. That's not the piece that's needed right now here for Christian. And now the question is, do you commit this Night Stretcher to taking a KO? Are you okay knocking out the Screamtail?
What other choice do you have?
I don't think there is another choice, Kyle. If you don't knock out the Screamtail, one more Roaring Scream is going to KO this Blood Moon Ursaluna on the bench, and that's going to be game 1 for Henry.
Yeah, you don't want to play into anything, but you don't really have a choice. You need to remove this Pokemon or else you lose. And there's some bad news on the other hand. A pink card from Henry. He's holding the Secret Box. That would be the perfect answer in that final Counter Catcher to get the job done too.
Counter Catcher or a way to bring back Screamtail, either of those work. We'll see the Night Stretcher protect a little bit against some stalling plays. And there we go. We're just going to see the Raging Bolt extends the hand, understands Henry has things locked up. Henry Chow fighting for this game number 1 and showing us why he is such a master of this Gardevoird deck. Excellently played, and what a great match that was.
Honestly, he overcame so much in that game. It looked like he was on the back foot time and time again. I feel like every time that we check in on Henry, it's not looking great, but that's what Gardevoird does. It continues to fight back, and he gives himself these opportunities that not a lot of other players find.
Let's take a look back and figure out what happened through this first game. We saw Christian put on the gas immediately. It was the boss's orders, turn 1 KO on the Ralts, allowed him to get to a pretty commanding 2-prize lead, but Henry had a great response. The Lily's Clefairy, Gardevoird EX, paired with that 1-prize Screamtail that made Christian have to reroute how he wanted to play out this game number 1.
Yeah, we saw the active sniping from a Screamtail into the active sniping from a baby Raging Bolt. It was a wild back and forth of these single prize Pokemon because that's just where we were in the game. Christian then ends up losing a big Pokemon here and just has to try to find an option to stick around in this game. The Jamming Tower play was so great, but unfortunately just did not have the pieces to close out here, and Henry shows off some mastery level Gardevoird play.
Got a little bit of an update from the floor. Michael Davidson is up right now, 1-0 in this top 4. He's looking to become the slayer of the other Terra Box. We could be seeing a Gardevoird EX finals match, but if Christian's got anything he wants to say about that, he's going to have to put things on in game number 2. And interestingly enough, Christian actually opting to go second again in this situation here. As Henry starts this first turn off, is there any way for him to find a basic Pokemon in this hand?
Oh, please.
It looks like an Ultra Ball, but not much else besides that. You've got to do what you can in this spot, so we'll see Ultra Ball get played. Potentially another Ralts coming down, but first just going to check through the deck, see what pieces are available, and construct his best strategy.
Yeah, I mean, staring down the Fan Rotom on the other side is a very intimidating presence. Just that the Stadium edition, and also just the board presence that this Pokemon gives, you know you're in for a long game on the other side. And if you don't find the answers quickly, you're just going to be out of this one and move into game 3.
That Screamtail that was so important in the first game, it's at the top of the prize cards for Henry, so immediately taking note of that Screamtail and figuring out how he wants to adjust his strategy, and it may be with the other Pokemon at the top of the prizes last game, that Drifloon being available now.
Yeah, it's a great Pokemon to focus on this 2-prize game where you want to remove the larger hit points of that Raging Bolt. You don't have to always jump straight into the Lily's Clefairy. Most of the time you can find that knockout on your own with just the sheer aggression of a Drifloon.
So assume it will be another Ralts coming down. No reason to necessarily grab anything else. You want to make sure Kirlia comes into play, then Gardevoird. We'll see what Henry decides to choose, and him discarding an him discarding an Iono off this Ultra Ball does signal, at least to everybody involved, that there's at least going to be some sort of thing happening on the following turn when it comes to drawing cards with supporters. And interestingly enough, valuing Monkey Dory and even just discarding a Dark Energy from hand to preserve this Ralts to retreat into Monkey, which is not in range of that powerful Assault Landing.
Yeah, you know it's not super likely for your opponent to have that opening boss's orders like they did on the opening turn of game 1. It's also hard to find that ace spec, so the protection of just moving this Pokemon into the active spot to guard your Ralts feels a little more comfortable than what you're used to. But Christian still has potential to find some pretty great resources. We already see Ultra Ball with an energy in combination with that Sada's. He will find a few additional resources and start to build a board himself.
So Fan Rotom using Fan Call, searching through the deck. We'll be able to find some of these colorless Pokemon, but that main Pokemon we've been hyping up all weekend, Ditto, is in the prize card, so unable to use that transformative start. And assuming there's not a lot of Nest Balls here, Kyle may struggle to get things like Ogerpon into play.
Yeah, even that baby Raging Bolt that we've seen so often be great in this matchup when you don't have Rabska in play. It's something that we might not see either. It's hard to search this Pokemon out, and we saw so often from Christian Labella playing this deck, if you can throw that Ditto in the active spot and just start attacking with that long neck, you're in trouble.
So see the other pieces here for Christian. Energies, Sada's, Vitality. We'll see a pair of some Owls, so 2 Hoot Hoot and a Noctowl put into the hand. And there is an Ultra Ball as well, so gonna get rid of that key tech card, the Peturunt EX, not a card I think I'd be saying in Raging Bolt, as well as a Fighting Energy. So if there's something like a Raging Bolt, Baby, or EX found, Sada can be used on turn 1. Not a common instance, but it's powerful when it works.
Peturunt got a reaction out of Henry. I'm sure he's heard the whispers of this card, as Christian has been very adamant that this is his play that he wants to use instead of that Turo that we so often have seen as a tech inclusion.
So Latias EX the choice, interestingly enough, here for Christian. Maybe wanting to pivot into something different or just have that option available. We've seen, how important Skyliner is for Raging Bolt. Just eliminates the need to have to play cards like Switch in your deck when you just have free retreat for the entirety of the game on another Pokemon. It already actually has the Raging Bolt, so Christian, as long as he can find a Lightning Energy, could take this knockout with Bellowing Thunder on turn 1. I'm not sure, however, if he has an energy that he needs. Let's see the rest of the hand. No, just a bunch of Pokemon, it looks like. 5 Pokemon, Nest Ball, Jamming Tower. There's not going to be much action happening until next turn, Kyle.
Well, thankfully with the Nest Ball, he's got the option to go with the Terra Pokemon and then use the Jewel Seeker on the following turn. Could set that up now if he wants to just make sure that it's online. If his opponent has that Iono, might as well have those resources established. It's not like your opponent's going to go after this Pokemon early.
Yeah, really no attacking threat from Henry. He could have a crazy combination of resources, but the most likely instance here, it's not going to be the case. And also playing the Jamming Tower down early so that Technical Machine Evolution is not an option early on for Henry, and that can be a little bit frustrating when all you really want to do early on with Gardevoird is put your energy and focus into getting Gardevoird into play.
Yeah, that's the only attack that you really see often in these opening turns from a Gardevoird player. And it's not going to be the case this time around unless things change here for Henry. Finding a card like that TM Evolution in combination with Artisan would be an absolute dream. Let's see what he's made of with 6 cards.
Does find the Technical Machine Evolution. Okay. There is a Kirlia in the hand too, and that actually could allow him to just skip the stage of evolution completely and go into the Gardevoird, but the Jamming Tower, it's there to prevent it. Get a little bit excited sometimes, but Jamming Tower, its waves infect those affected by it. I feel I've had so much hope, and then I got hit by it all at once. Jamming Tower, it does not work. It does not work, Kyle.
We were so close. Artisan would have just had all the pieces needed to get the job done, but I'm sure Henry feels a little comfortable knowing that at least he evolved this time around. He was having a really hard time finding this Pokemon, and he's got a couple answers now.
And speaking of having answers, I think Christian's got more questions than answers at this point. There is nothing going on in this hand, just a boss's orders potentially Sada, but no Jewel Seeker. We're going to see boss's orders be played again super early on a one prize Pokemon. This was the same storyline essentially in game number 1. Bellowing Thunder KO. Monkey Dory comes up, and now for Henry, if he has the rare candy, oh my goodness, give it to me, Henry. You've got the rare candy. That is exactly what he wants to see. Big time find there for Henry.
It is unreal how often this happens with a single copy of rare candy, not even searched out with Arvin or Secret Box. It's all right there. Iono to disrupt the hand, and Christian's feeling pretty bad. He used his boss's orders on a single prizer. His prime catcher's in the prizes, and he has nothing to handle this Gardevoird.
And found Secret Box.
Oh my gosh.
Cards from Iono. That could guarantee something like the Earthen Vessel, as well as even potentially a way to search out something. May not even need it, depending on having Psychic Energy in the discard pile. You could grab the Lily's Clefairy EX and then the Drifloon off of Artisan. And there only needs to be 2 energy in the discard pile, since 2 Psychic Embrace puts the Drifloon to 4. Times the 3 is 120, and then times 2 again is the KO. Are we going to see a turn 3 KO here from Henry Chow?
It's a disrespectful knockout with only 2 energies, but sure enough, it's exactly what you need with the Drifloon. If he has access to those cards, surely he'll have it. And yes, as you see, with the Artisan searching out the Lily's Clefairy on with your item card of choice as well, should have access to that. I think we saw the 2 Psychic flash right there.
There's 2 Psychic, and can still keep that last one in the hand, or even could grab Ultra Ball if he wants to discard that last Psychic Energy, and that will be the exact case. Henry Chow, the plot armor, unreal here. One of rare candy without searching it, into the copy of Gardevoird, into the absolute bonker combination of cards. Henry Chow just running away with the second game.
And why not leave yourself with a hand of Research and Super Rod? Of all cards, you have your backup answers to finding these Pokemon again, searching them back out with the Artisan if it sticks. He's got everything working for him here, and Christian's just left folding his hands, wondering what happened.
Yeah, and even in this spot, Henry could just go attack straight up with the Clefairy. There is always that fear, right? You power the Drifloon up, and then the Gardevoird gets KO'd. Why not just establish it instead? When you're off to such a commanding lead like this is a situation as a Gardevoird player you very rarely find yourself in, because you're expecting your opponent to always take the 2, maybe first 3 prize cards before you get going. Henry is like, nah, that's not for me. I'm going to do things my own way and take these prize cards super early on. Full Moon Rondo. Hello, Raging Bull. Get out of here.
Yeah, this is a pretty great hedge here. Still gets to keep the energies on a Pokemon that isn't the Gardevoird, protect this Pokemon with the hit points, and he's got a pretty great attacker that can continue to put on pressure on some of these 2 prize Pokemon, and we don't have to see Henry take his foot off the gas just yet.
So again, Christian's found in a little bit of an awkward spot here. You know, taking a big sigh, a big deep breath. He did this on the last turn of the game as well. You see him methodically plan out what he wants to do. Wants to map everything out in his head before he starts using these Teal Dance, starts using these Nest Ball. But at minimum, we'll see cards be drawn, flip the script can be used, and these Noctowl, they're going to provide a lot of value to helping Christian come back into this game.
Right, and it's not like he needs to find out too much in this situation. If he's able to take this knockout with a Raging Bolt, in his mind, it would be pretty comfortable. He'd take a knockout on the Lily's Clefairy, protect himself a little bit. He's not immediately KO'd by a Gardevoird and a Monkey Dory damage, but he doesn't know that the other card waiting in the hand is the Super Rod.
Yeah, I wonder here if you're Christian, because there's 2 damage counters on this Monkey Dory, no, but you can't put 3 energy on a baby Raging Bolt, because if you haven't taken a prize yet, it feels like, you know, with this Raging Bolt deck going 5 to 4 to 2 to 2, that's usually your most efficient path, and it's even more so when Henry has just taken the prize lead to begin with.
Yeah, there's just so much pressure. We still don't even see the Area 0 underdepths at this point. He's searching out now, has to use one of his Jewel Seeker pieces to get that done. then find his attacker for the turn as well. Just a lot to ask for, and when you're using your cards, I hesitate to say inefficiently, but just not as optimally as you'd like here. It's just a bit unfortunate.
So Christian's going to do what he can, extends the bench now thanks to that Area 0. You see how limited the deck is with just 5 Pokemon, but just those extra 3 gives you so many more options, and it's going to rely on a big bellowing Thunder and potentially hoping Henry just cannot bring back the Lily's Clefairy enough times for that Fairy Zone to have a huge effect in this matchup.
And you have to expect that Henry understood that and knows that this is a pretty important Pokemon, and he chose anyways to bring this Pokemon into the active spot. It might be the nod that Christian needs to know that this Pokemon might be coming back.
So we'll see if there's a second Ancient Pokemon to hit the bench before Professor Sada is played. We're going to see the Teal Dance become number 2 of the turn, number 7 of the Pokemon on Christian's bench, and there is an Ultra Ball in the hand. So how does Christian want to go about playing this? It looks like there's a couple key resources in this hand. The hand, surprisingly, with how many cards have been drawn, Kyle, it's getting pretty thin. Yeah,
he's played so many resources to get to this point, and ultimately it's as simple as finding 2 energies for that Raging Bolt to put the knockout onto this Lily's Clefairy, but what else can you do? How many energies can you leave on board in this situation so that maybe you have a second attack lined up, maybe into a Gardevoird down the road, if you can get lucky out of your prizes?
So just debating what that other Ancient Pokemon is going to be, does find the baby Raging Bolt, so maybe it is a 2-prize angle this turn, and then you got to sneak that Raging Bolt in there, the non-EX at some point to try and swing things back into your favor. Christian's going to do all he can. Now only just needs to find the Lightning energy to take the knockout. As long as there are enough energy in the discard pile, Sada is going to take a look through, accelerate one of the various energies. Christian's going to take the prize lead for now, but Henry just having so many options and is guaranteed sitting on that powerful Professor's Research that he grabbed the previous turn as well.
Yeah, such a comfortable spot for him, holding on to some great resources. Meanwhile, Christian's been throwing cards left and right, trying to get an answer, but he does have it. And sure enough, he's taking the prize lead at this point, taking a great knockout on this Lily's Clefairy. And he's going to keep some energies around too. Wouldn't be surprised to see both energies on the active Pokemon discard at this point. Seems like this Raging Bolt is not going to be around too long, but actually wants to keep 1 energy here too. And maybe that's a understanding that something on the bench is a little more important.
A little bit of flexibility, that's for certain. Action back on Henry. And look at this, sitting on the Super Rod to bring back the Lily's Clefairy and the Nest Ball in the hand as well. It's already here for Henry if he wants to take another 2 prize cards, and now just has to figure out what the map is to take the final 2 prizes. We didn't even talk about this, Kyle. Put 3 damage counters on that Fan Rotom. That could come up later on in the game to close things out. Yeah, building up on that Pokemon. So often, that's what Munkidori can do in a situation like this. But unfortunately here, with the Artisan played back, knew that this Pokemon would probably be targeted and throws it away pretty swiftly. Gets rid of the Fan Rotom. We haven't seen Adrena Brain be used yet, and that's actually the first action for Henry. A small detail, but making decisions like that before you play other cards, it gives Christian little information to go with and having to make decisions before he knows what's coming. Yeah, you don't know that Lily's Clefairy is immediately coming right back to the board. It seems pretty unlikely when you know that your opponent's holding the research. They would have to still go find all those cards. Instead, you have it already, and now you have 7 new cards to work with too. Just leaves Christian holding his head. Even the Artisan, Munkidori, Dark Energy, that would be icing on top of the already plentiful cake that Henry is starting to bake in the oven at this point. Does find the Night Stretcher a couple of energies. I don't know if this is Rabska's time to shine, but it does block some damage from the Thunderburst Storm, and the bench isn't too clogged here for Henry as things are. I mean, it would put your opponent on a clock. They would have to attack with the Baby Raging Bolt this next turn if you play down that Pokemon, but it doesn't seem exactly like where you want to go. And sometimes you see both of them together, and it starts to look like that might be the line. It looks like the line for sure, and this is just exactly what Henry wants. The Dark Energy off Earthen Vessel and the Artisan already in play. Second Munkidori Dark Energy coming down, and now every turn Henry just gets to put 6 damage counters from his own Pokemon onto one of these benched Pokemon, and with there being both the Pheasantipity and Latias, they are excellent targets. Henry Chow can taste the victory. He is so close to making another finals here at a regional championships this season. And now just considerations for how you want to move some damage counters around. You could protect some of the damage
on that Monkey Dory, move the 2 damage counters away, and then use a card like that Bravery Charm on your Ralts. Just give yourself so much hit points on these single prize Pokemon to avoid the shenanigans from the Baby Raging Bolt. Just depends on if that's what you're more concerned about, this single prize interaction, or if you want to focus on the 2 prizers and win yourself.
So we see a little bit hesitant on where he wants to move some of the damage counters. We're actually going to see both Adrenabrain. So putting the Hoot Hoot to 4 damage counters means regardless next turn, as it appears, 2 Adrenabrains, even if it evolves, will KO this Hoot Hoot. Wants to just leave extra damage, so that's not an issue. Taking the knockout, Henry Chow is just 2 prize cards now away. But importantly here, Kyle, and this is actually probably the smartest option, because of that Screamtail being prized, didn't really have the luxury to put damage counters on either the Pheasantipity or the Latios in this spot. Sniping is not an option.
Yeah, and if the Raging Bolt were to be the attacker here, Henry has the perfect answer. He'd take the knockout on the active, he'd move the damage to the eventual knockdown that we expect to see, and Christian flashes
that?
Triple Stretcher.
That's insane. In the most intense match, one of the most intense matches of your life, just, yeah, I have all these cards in my hand. You want to take a look? I
mean, Christian is known for the "Are you not entertained" pose that he ripped in the middle of one game, so this is exactly up his alley.
Having some fun, even in tight moments. That's the show of great sportsmanship between these competitors. Jewel Seeker coming out, but even though that Noctowl's evolved, it's in perfect range of 2 Adrenabrain abilities. Christian, the house is almost flooded here. Can you do anything to save it, or are you going down with the ship?
Yeah, it's looking pretty dire in this spot, but that's why you got to keep on fighting. There's always potential to sneak out a victory. But what avenue makes the most sense? Can you remove a Monkey Dory from play here to protect that Noctowl, force your opponent to find Dark Energy and Monkey Dory as well if they want to go with the single prize route twice, or maybe you can play around that 2 prize. It's just a lot to ask.
May have to be some combination of an Iono KO, and then again just hope your opponent doesn't have the Night Stretcher to Big Rack the Clefairy. That feels like it has to be the option, because if you're hand disrupting and you're not removing the Clefairy, then the game is just on the board at this point. But Christian's actually going to take a little bit of a different approach. He's going to grab Counter Catcher, it seems, off of the Noctowl. It looks like we're just making sure everything is correct. So it will be the Counter Catcher Iono. So what is he cooking here? It looks like cooking up something with Blood Moon Ursaluna, and maybe just grabbing the Counter Catcher to bring something else up. It's actually going to be the Monkey Dory. So Monkey Dory may just take the most brutal attack of all time. That is going to be excessive damage coming out from Blood Moon Ursaluna. But he is putting himself in a position where, you know, if for some reason Henry is unable to deal with Ursaluna, he would win the game on the next turn.
Yeah, and he's also choosing to remove the one with damage on it, which doesn't seem exactly like where you want to be, but when you're playing against Gardevoird, anytime that you see damage counters on the board, you understand those could be pushed right back onto you.
Yeah, and the big thing to note, again, Screamtail being not in the prize cards means it's just not as much of an option. However, Henry will have a 50-50 here at minimum because he can guarantee take that prize. So here we go for Henry. Does he have it? Flip the script immediately, just slamming it down. Ultra Ball, Professor's Research. Does Henry have the pieces here in the deck? There's the Mew EX. The Mew EX can copy the Blood Moon, say, I could swing hard too. And Adrenabrain ability means Henry Chow punches his ticket into another TCG Masters final match where he looks for number 4.